In the busy lobby of a towering office building, Sarah stood with her arms crossed, her voice rising above the hum of conversations. She yelled, her face flushed with anger. She was staring at Matt, her coworker, who was typically calm and composed. In that moment, Matt wore a look of surprise, his eyes widening. "Sarah, please, this isn't the place," he said, his voice steady but soft. At that moment, the marble floors echoed with the sounds of heels clicking and phones buzzing, but all Sarah could focus on was the heat of the moment, the rush of emotion spilling out of her. She felt betrayed. For weeks, she had poured her heart into a project, working late nights and skipping lunch breaks. But when the team met to discuss it, Matt had hardly acknowledged her contributions. Instead, he shifted the focus onto his own ideas. It felt unfair, and now frustration bubbled over. People turned to look, whispering amongst themselves. Sarah was not one to lose her cool in public, but today it felt necessary. "I worked hard on this and you can't just brush me aside," she shouted, her voice cracking as she struggled to contain her emotions. A moment passed and the tension hung thick in the air. Matt didn't respond immediately, he simply stared at her, unsure of what to say. Finally he sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. "I understand you're upset, but this isn't helping." Sarah clenched her fists, wanting to scream. Instead, she turned away, storming out of the lobby. As she walked, she could hear the low murmurs of her colleagues, some amused, others sympathetic. It burned her knowing she had given them a show, but it also felt like a release. She needed to cool down. As she stepped outside into the crisp air, she replayed the confrontation in her mind. She was hurt, yes, but she was also tired of people overlooking her capabilities. She took a deep breath, reflecting on her journey. She remembered the late nights, the determination, the passion she had poured into her work. How could they not see her? But it was just a loud moment. Surely it would blow over, right? Hours later, Sarah found herself in the conference room, surrounded by familiar faces, but still feeling the weight of her earlier outburst. The meeting was about to start, and her stomach twisted as she noticed Matt stepping in, his demeanor completely different. He straightened his tie, exuding confidence as he walked to the head of the table, standing tall like a leader should. For a moment, her heart sank. The very person she had just yelled at was now commanding the room. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here," he began, his voice clear and strong. As he laid out the agenda, Sarah watched in disbelief. He moved seamlessly from point to point, exuding authority and rattling off information like he had rehearsed it 1,000 times. She felt her own voice inside her head whispering doubts. Was this a mistake? Had she ruined her chance to stand out? They discussed various projects, and as the papers shuffled, Matt referenced the initiative they had worked on her initiative. There it was, a recognition she craved, but still felt diminished next to his confident posture. As the meeting progressed, Sarah found herself torn between admiration and jealousy. Matt skillfully navigated questions, addressing concerns with ease. When people applauded his ideas, it struck a nerve deep inside her. Why couldn't she be in his place? Why could he speak so freely while she felt tied up inside? The meeting went on and Sarah remained silent, trapped in her thoughts. However, the more she sat there, the more she realized she couldn't continue being merely a bystander. She needed her voice back to reclaim her contribution. When the meeting wrapped up, Sarah lingered behind, hoping to catch Matt to discuss her feelings and why she felt the need to yell. As the other team members filtered out, she finally approached him, her heart racing. "Matt," she said softly. He looked up, a surprised expression crossing his face. "Of course," he replied, his tone a little warmer now, but still edged with caution. They moved to a quieter spot in the conference room, the walls still thick with all they had discussed earlier. "I'm sorry for yelling, Sarah admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Matt nodded, his eyes softening. "I get it, I really do." He paused, searching for the right words. "Your work on that project was phenomenal, and I acknowledge how hard you worked." Her heart felt lighter, and she could breathe a little easier. "I just want to be part of this team, but I also want a lead." The sincerity in his eyes was reassuring. "You will be, I promise. Let's not turn this into a competition. We're in this together." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. It was a chance to rebuild. "Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that." "Absolutely. Let's come up with a solid plan and we can pitch it together." He smiled, with a newfound respect gleaming in his eyes. They spent the next few days collaborating. Sarah saw a different side of Matt. He became not just a coworker, but a teammate. He encouraged her input and listened to her ideas attentively. As they brainstormed, Sarah felt her confidence returning, and then came presentation day. In the same conference room that had once felt suffocating, she stood with Matt, their faces beaming with enthusiasm. The entire team was there and Sarah was ready, not just to present, but to claim her space. As they addressed the room, Matt turned to her. "This is an exciting project, and Sarah has worked tirelessly on it." He stepped back, allowing her to take the lead. The spotlight felt bright but invigorating. Sarah spoke passionately, sharing her insights, explaining the strategies, and engaging her colleagues. She felt empowered, her voice rising confidently above the rest. The change in dynamic was palpable. When she finished, they buzzed with energy. Someone exclaimed, and it felt like music to her ears. After the presentation, the team was excited. They exchanged ideas, compliments, and plans. Matt leaned over, a satisfied smile on his face. You did it. Later, when the day wound down and they were finally alone, Sarah turned to Matt with a grateful heart. Thank you for believing in me. I think we make a great team, Matt replied, his gaze steady. Sometimes it just takes a loud moment to spark something powerful. Sarah felt a rush of gratitude for the connection they had formed. It was a lesson in growth about speaking up, collaborating, and truly valuing each other's strengths. Days turned into weeks and their project blossomed, gaining recognition. Every meeting, every brainstorming session made Sarah feel more connected to her work and to Matt, a partnership she couldn't have anticipated. Retrospect, that day in the lobby was a turning point, a moment of emotion and truth that opened a door. It taught Sarah that it's okay to be passionate, to voice concerns, and to stand up for what you believe in. As she looked back on that day, she realized it was necessary to confront those feelings of frustration. It wasn't just about a disagreement, it was about claiming her worth in a world that often overlooked her. No longer would she let her voice be muffled. No longer would she feel invisible. Sarah had found her place, her confidence, and her voice, all thanks to a loud moment that changed everything. And as she walked through the office now, she felt the difference. She was not just a participant, she was a leader. Sarah's voice echoed in the lobby, sharp and piercing through the bustle of the morning crowd. The glow of fluorescent lights cast a stark glare on the polished floors beneath her feet. Colleagues paused mid-conversation, whispering behind cupped hands, their backs slightly turned as if the drama unfolding was just another Tuesday. Standing across from her was Matt, eyes wide with surprise. He had always been the picture of cool composure, but Sarah's words snagged him like a stray thread. But for Sarah, the place didn't matter. The air smelled of coffee and fresh pastries, and the sound of scuffling shoes filled the room, but all she could hear was the pounding of her heart. She was fed up. Fed up with being overlooked. The project they had been working on for months had come to its climax, and yet all anyone seemed to notice was Matt's name. She shouted, the frustration boiling over after countless meetings where her input had slipped through the cracks unnoticed. As the words spilled out, she felt hot embarrassment but kept going. You can't just brush me aside. The lobby fell silent, each person frozen to witness the storm. Matt looked taken aback, his brow knitting together. You're right, you do deserve to be heard, he said slowly, trying to keep the peace. Her chest tightened. It felt like betrayal the way he stood there, unflappable while she felt the walls closing in around her. Her voice, usually strong, wavered. Matt stepped back, a hint of regret shadowing his eyes. We are, but Sarah was already spinning on her heel, her breath quickening as she stormed out of the lobby, leaving behind hushed whispers and curious glances. Outside, she leaned against the cool brick wall, the crisp air biting at her skin. She couldn't shake the feeling of rage that bubbled under her joyless facade. It was not just Matt, it was the whole system that seemed to dismiss her contributions. It felt like she was invisible, a phantom in a sea of voices. Just outside, the world was moving fast. People rushed past her, too busy with their own lives. But for Sarah, time felt still suspended in that moment. The reflection in the glass doors reminded her of her resolve. She had earned her place, and she wasn't going to allow someone else to stand in her way. But the anger bubbled up again as she thought about the upcoming board meeting later that afternoon. There, all her ideas would be laid bare, and she would proudly defend her work. She took a deep breath. It was time to channel this fire inside her to rise higher. Hours later, Sarah entered the conference room, her heart racing. Colleagues filled the long table with a mix of excitement and drawn faces, ready for what seemed to be an important day. She took her seat determined, then in walked Matt. The room shifted as all heads turned toward him. He wore a crisp suit, an air of authority draping over him like a cloak. Good afternoon, everyone, he began, his tone confident and steady. Sarah's heart sank. He was commanding the room just like she envisioned, but not in the way she wanted. As he introduced the agenda, her mind raced. Each word seemed to bounce off the walls, creating a barrier that left her feeling like an outsider once again. He glanced at her, a flicker of acknowledgement, but then continued speaking, his confidence unwavering as if he was the one behind all the hard work. Today we'll discuss the strategies for the new marketing campaign. The emphasis on "our" felt like a knife. Sarah felt invisible again, the anger simmering back to life. As the meeting unfolded, he shared point after point with ease, showcasing the ideas she had toiled over. Each nod of approval sent a fresh wave of frustration pulsing through her. Couldn't they see how much she had done? Was she not worthy of recognition? Her mind swirled. Disappointment clouded her vision. It was consuming. She couldn't just sit there anymore. Finally, when the discussion shifted to a new marketing strategy that someone suggested, something inside her snapped. Excuse me, Sarah interrupted, surprising herself and others around the table. I think there's another angle we should consider. The room shifted, all eyes on her, surprise hanging thick in the air. Matt paused, and although a flicker of annoyance crossed his face, it was quickly masked by professionalism. Of course, Sarah, go ahead, he invited. Maybe he was trying to salvage her openness, but she felt it, a tug of power forming as she spoke her truth. Taking a breath, she outlined her ideas, weaving through them with passion. The way her voice melded with the energy of the room felt invigorating. Slowly, she could see heads nod. Attentive faces turned from Matt to her, as if the fog of misunderstanding was clearing. After she finished, her heart raced, not from the adrenaline of conflict, but from the electricity of her own voice reclaiming its place in the conversation. It felt like stepping into a vibrant world, a world that had always belonged to her. "Great ideas, Sarah," someone called out. Matt leaned back in his chair, assessing her with renewed respect. "You make some strong points," he added, his own tone shifting, realizing he couldn't ignore her any longer. In that moment, that spark ignited something in Sarah. She watched as the team dove into conversation, building off her ideas. It was her moment of triumph, a moment where the frustration of the lobby faded into the background, replaced by empowered voices and shared enthusiasm. Meeting concluded with applause for their collaborative efforts, their strategy taking shape like a living organism, vibrant and full of potential. When they left the conference room, it felt different, electric. Sarah could see it in the faces around her, a recognition of strength and teamwork. As she exited, she caught Matt's eye. He smiled, a genuine smile this time, filled with understanding. "You really brought it today," he said, the barriers that had once stood between them crumbling like old bricks. "Thanks," Sarah replied, her heart swelling. "I had to speak up. I can't just be quiet and hope for the best." "And you were. We need that," he replied, the sincerity radiating from him. She realized in that moment things had shifted, not just in their dynamic but within her. The frustration she felt earlier had turned into strength. She was no longer carrying that burden alone, now she had allies. Days turned into weeks, and that spark continued to grow. Sarah and Matt began collaborating more effectively. Yelling in the lobby felt distant, like an echo of a time when they were still learning how to value each other's voices. Their project moved forward, gaining traction as they pitched their ideas to higher-ups, and with every presentation, Sarah became more confident, her passion spilling through every word. Then came the day of the annual board meeting. This was it, the culmination of their efforts. Sarah sat in the front row, her heart racing as she awaited their turn. She glanced at Matt beside her and he nodded, a silent promise that they were in this together. When the moment arrived, Sarah stood to present, Matt backing her up, his presence dependable. She spoke with conviction, outlining their project's highlights and sharing not just the what, but the why behind their decisions. It flowed out of her like a river, smooth and powerful. As she shared the significance of her contributions, she caught sight of the board members' eyes widening in interest. She felt their collective energy, their desire to be a part of something bold. Finally, when the presentation ended, there was a round of applause. Sarah felt tears pricking her eyes, tears of triumph, of acknowledgement, of finally being seen. It was a moment to celebrate not just for her, but for them both. Later, as they walked out together, Matt turned to her, pride beaming from his face. "You nailed it, Sarah. I wouldn't be here without you allowing me the space," she said, meaning every word. The anger from that chaotic morning had forged a meaningful alliance that neither of them had expected. He replied, and Sarah nodded, her heart full with the trust they had built. In a world filled with voices that can easily be drowned out, Sarah had learned the importance of claiming her space. The wild moments, even the loud confrontations in the lobby, were not hindrances but stepping stones to growth. She stepped into the office every day with newfound confidence, forging the path ahead not just for herself but for everyone who ever felt unheard, visible or invisible. Through yelling and healing, it turned out they had both discovered the strength in partnership. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where the voices would be strong and the ideas bold. Sarah's voice rang out, startling everyone in the busy lobby. It cut through the morning chatter, slicing the atmosphere like a knife. People paused, glancing over from their conversations, drawn to the unfolding drama in the sleek, glass-walled building. Across from her stood Matt, bewildered, a mix of shock and caution washing over his face. He replied, his voice lowered yet tinged with urgency, but Sarah was past the point of reason. The frustration that had been bubbling inside her for weeks now overflowed. "You don't get to just ignore my ideas and then take credit for them. We worked on this together." With each word, her pulse quickened. She felt exposed yet powerful, like a flame igniting in the shadowy corners of the office. This was the moment she could no longer allow her voice to be silenced. The air crackled with tension. Their coworkers, initially engrossed in their own tasks, now stood wide-eyed, some inching closer, like spectators at a gripping performance. "Sarah, please," Matt said, desperately trying to diffuse the rising fervor. But Sarah shook her head. "I'm done being polite." The heat of embarrassment flushed her cheeks, but the harder she dared to confront the moment, the stronger she felt. It was almost surreal, standing there, fully aware that the drama was all-consuming and paradoxically liberating. She shouted, the words echoing from the glossy walls around them. At that moment, the murmurs intensified. Whispers erupted all around like the rustle of leaves stirred by a sudden wind. Sarah's heart raced, but she pressed on, fueled by a mix of fear and tenacity. Matt frowned, visibly hurt. "I didn't mean to dismiss you," he replied, his tone now softer. For a split second, Sarah hesitated, the guilt washing over her. But then she remembered the countless times she had felt ignored, the countless meetings where Matt's ideas had stolen the spotlight. The weight of silent frustration settled deeply in her stomach. she shouted before storming out, leaving behind her own vulnerable truth hanging in the air. Outside, she gripped her phone in her hand, attempting to stop the shaking. The wind whipped around her, but deep down there was a flicker of relief. She walked into the nearby park, seeking solace in the open space. As she sat on a bench, the earlier confrontation played repeatedly in her mind like a record stuck on the same note. Was she right to confront him, or had she just ruined everything? Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her best friend, Emma. The response came swiftly. What? As she filled Emma in, she began to feel lighter, as if the weight of her frustrations were slowly dissipating. I just want to be recognized, she said, almost to herself. When she returned to the office, she found it buzzing with a different kind of energy. The board meeting was scheduled for later that afternoon, and nerves were palpable. Her heart sank. The last thing she wanted was to confront Matt again in front of the team. As the meeting room filled, she caught sight of Matt at the front, adjusting his tie, exuding confidence. There he was, the very picture of a leader stepping into the spotlight. The guards she had let down during their earlier fight sprang back up higher than ever. Now he would be the one showcasing all the ideas, including hers, while she remained a ghost in the room. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us, Matt began, diverting every eye towards him. As he presented the agenda, Sarah felt her throat tighten. With each slide, he elegantly articulated their plans, his tone authoritative and sure, but she couldn't just sit there. Unable to contain herself any longer, she raised her hand. The room turned to her, and though their expressions were wary, she could feel a shift. Matt looked momentarily startled. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steady yet tense. With that, something strange happened. As she spoke, she felt a wave of courage filling her. She outlined her ideas, the key points flourishing with all the passion she had held inside. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt the attention in the room shift toward her. People leaned in, listening intently. They nodded, engaged. It was as if she had opened a floodgate, the energy nudging her along as she shared her thoughts. We shouldn't shy away from harnessing the current trends in our industry. As she zoomed in on her points, she caught Matt's eye. His expression had changed, transformed, softened. The surprise and respect flickered across his face. Once she finished, the room buzzed with lively discussion. Sarah had never felt more alive. Other team members began to ping off her ideas, elaborating, adding their own thoughts, the collaboration finally showing the unity she had yearned for. When the meeting concluded, she caught Matt's gaze again. "You did great," he said, that familiar passion in his eyes, a reminder of why they had teamed up in the first place. The relief swept over her, lifting her spirits. "Thanks, yeah, I get it now," he replied, the sincerity radiating from him. "I should have acknowledged your contributions better." With each successive meeting, Sarah grew more comfortable, her voice blossoming like spring flowers piercing through a frost. That one shocking moment in the lobby had sparked a transformation within her, igniting a chain reaction of trust and transparency between her and Matt. Weeks rolled on and their campaign flourished, gaining recognition from higher-ups. The project had become a blend of their efforts. What had once felt like a struggle was now an engaging collaboration. And then came the day of the big board meeting. Sarah arrived early, the palpable energy swirling around her. Nervousness wrapped around her like a shroud. It felt heavier now. This wasn't just about her, not anymore. It was about the whole team, their hard work, and their ideas. As everyone gathered, Sarah spotted Matt entering with the rest of the leadership team. He looked sharp, confidence oozing from every pore, but today she wouldn't let that intimidate her. They were equals in this, and she felt it deeply. When her moment finally came, she stood tall, her heart hammering against her ribcage. She shared her points passionately, drawing from the synergy they had developed over the weeks. And then, as she completed her presentation, she felt the collective attention hold firm. "Excellent work, Sarah," a board member exclaimed. The applause erupted, filling the room with warmth. Sarah locked eyes with Matt, who smiled broadly, his affirmation shining like a beacon. The walls built from tension and misunderstanding had crumbled, replaced by a new foundation of trust. Later, with the meeting behind them, Sarah and Matt stepped outside together, the warm afternoon sun brushing against their skin. "Looks like we did it," Matt said, pride lighting his features. "Together," she corrected softly, and he nodded, realizing the impact of their journey. "Thank you for pushing me, for refusing to back down. I needed you to hold me accountable," he admitted, a newfound respect shining through. Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. It was no longer about one person standing tall while the other lurked in the shadows. Together, they had found balance. In the weeks ahead, their bond grew stronger, evolving from colleagues to true partners. They learned that uncomfortable moments could lead to something beautiful, something shared. Through a single, fiery confrontation in that bustling lobby and the startling clarity it brought, Sarah had regained her voice while forming a renewed connection with Matt. No longer shadows in a crowded space, they were illuminating the path together, more powerful than either of them had ever imagined. Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the low hum of the bustling lobby. The sound echoed off the marble walls, freezing everyone in their tracks. Heads turned, the usual chatter melting away, replaced by tense whispers. Matt stood before her, surprised and taken aback. Sarah, this really isn't the time or the place, he replied, his voice steady but with a hint of uncertainty. But this wasn't just another day at work. Sarah had spent countless late nights drowning in spreadsheets, crafting strategies, and pouring her heart into a project that meant everything to her. And yet here they were, and once again Matt was poised to take center stage without a word of acknowledgement about her contributions. No time, she retorted, her fists clenched at her sides. You've taken the credit for our work too many times. The air crackled with intensity. Colleagues stood around, eyes wide, some exchanging glances as if witnessing a staged performance. But for Sarah, this was real. The outrage had been building for weeks, like a kettle boiling over. I thought we were a team, Matt said, attempting to navigate the onslaught of her fury. If you just give me a minute, no, I want to be heard, Matt. Her voice echoed loudly in the lobby, fueled by raw emotion. A moment passed, heavy and charged. Matt's face held a mix of surprise and concern, but Sarah felt emboldened. She couldn't take another meeting where her voice was muffled, where her ideas faded into the background. With a final glare, she turned and walked away, her heart pounding. Outside, the crisp air hit her like a gentle slap. It felt liberating, but also terrifying. Was she right? Had she just blown up everything? As she sat on a bench in the nearby park, the earlier confrontation spiraled in her mind, relentless and vivid. She felt a storm of emotions, a mix of regret, relief, and a newfound determination. Emma, her best friend, buzzed on her phone. The text read. Yelled at Matt in the lobby, Sarah typed back, exhaling deeply. The reply was almost immediate. OMG, are you okay? I'm not sure, she wrote. I just couldn't keep quiet anymore. The feeling of invisibility had seeped into her over recent months. Despite her hard work, she felt like a shadow, with Matt often stealing the spotlight. When Sarah returned to the office, she felt the weight of the confrontation still pressing on her shoulders. The team was preparing for the board meeting later that day, and anxiety pulsed through her veins. She had to present her ideas, the ones she had defended so fiercely only hours ago. In the conference room, the air was thick with nervous energy. As she entered, tension hung in the air like smoke, shifting when she spotted Matt at the front. Surrounded by his usual confidence, he was preparing to lead the meeting. The knot in Sarah's stomach tightened. Could she stand to watch him take credit for her ideas again? Good afternoon, everyone, Matt started, his tone smooth and assured. As he delved into the agenda, Sarah felt her heart sink deeper. He presented confidently, his relaxed demeanor contrasting sharply with her racing thoughts. Each point he brought up was familiar, echoing every late night she had spent working in silence. Deep breaths didn't ease her mounting frustration. Every word he spoke felt like salt in a wound that refused to heal. She wondered. Before she could gather her courage, he glanced her way, an encouraging smile breaking through the tension. I want to invite Sarah to share her insights on the marketing strategy. The room turned its attention to her. Suddenly, every eye was on her. She felt exposed, but also an urge to reclaim her voice. Thanks, Matt, she began, heart racing. The words stumbled at first. The nervousness melted, replaced by the fire of earlier frustrations. As she presented her ideas, she recalled those late nights, the passion that fueled her work. The energy in the room began to shift as she spoke, and she found the strength to keep going, the passion spilling over like ink on paper. By the time she finished, murmurs of approval floated through the room. For the first time that day, she felt lighter. The tension lifted, and people began to chime in, building off her ideas, offering suggestions. Someone said their enthusiasm contagious. Matt observed silently but intently, nodding along, his earlier dismissal replaced by encouragement. With each passing moment, Sarah could feel herself transforming, shedding the layers of doubt that had clung to her. It was a turning point. The warmth of applause washed over her when they wrapped up. Matt approached her, pride evident in his eyes. You nailed that, thanks, she replied, a genuine smile replacing her earlier frustration. Day after day, as they collaborated on the project, Sarah's confidence grew. What had started as frustration had transformed into a powerful partnership. They were navigating ideas, debating strategies, pushing each other further than either wanted to go alone. But that initial confrontation loomed in the past, a memory that had sparked a change neither of them had anticipated. They had established a rhythm, a synergy that breathed new life into their project. Then came the day of the annual board meeting. Sarah arrived early, nerves fluttering in her stomach. She rehearsed her lines, but practicing could never prepare her for the weight of this moment. As key players shuffled in, she spotted the board members taking their seats, discussing amongst themselves. When Matt walked in, his demeanor now exuded a calm confidence. He nodded to Sarah, and she felt her heart lift slightly. They were in this together. As the meeting began, Sarah's eyes flicked over to the agenda projected on the screen. Matt guided the initial part of the meeting, effortlessly taking charge, commanding the room. When the moment arrived for their presentation, he gestured toward her. This was it. Her heart raced, but as she started to present, she tapped into that sense of unity they'd built together. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, she said, finding the strength in her voice. As she spoke, Sarah felt the energy coalesce in the room, her words flowing freely. She was not just another voice, she was a force. With each slide, with each idea shared, she spun a tapestry of insights, her passion palpable. The room was alive, filled with positivity, engagement, and discussion. When she finished, the board members reacted with a chorus of praise, clapping and nodding their approval. It felt surreal. Instead of backing down, she had learned to rise, empowered by the confrontation that had once shaken her. Matt turned to her, the expression on his face a mix of pride and surprise. "That was incredible. You really took control of that presentation," he acknowledged, making Sarah smile wider than she had thought possible. As the meeting closed, Sarah walked out with Matt. The atmosphere felt light, buoyed by their shared success. "I never would have believed we'd turn this around," she said, breathless from the adrenaline that still coursed through her. "Every bit of it was a team effort," he replied, his voice warm. "And I'm glad you stood up for yourself that day in the lobby." His words resonated. The memory of that confrontation felt less like an embarrassment and more like a hero's journey, punctuated by trial and triumph. She had wrestled with her fears and emerged stronger. Weeks passed, and Sarah no longer felt like a shadow in the office. She had become a pivotal force in their workplace, carrying her voice with confidence. Her collaboration with Matt had sparked an energy that rippled throughout the team, motivating others to step out of their comfort zones as well. Waking up each day brought excitement instead of dread. Together, Sarah and Matt had turned a pivotal clash into something beautiful, a genuine partnership rooted in respect and shared purpose. As time moved on, the lessons they learned reverberated through their work. They had found strength in speaking up, in being uncomfortable, and in valuing each other's contributions. That day in the lobby had marked the start of their incredible journey, a lesson in courage, collaboration, and the power of voice. And with every board meeting, every brainstorming session, Sarah felt more at home in her space, no longer battling for acknowledgement, but instead embracing her role as the leader she was meant to be. She had learned that sometimes a loud moment was needed to ignite the fire of change and forge a path toward recognition and unity, proving that even a chaotic beginning can lead to a powerful ending. Together, they were building something extraordinary, one idea at a time. Sarah shouted, her voice slicing through the cacophony of the busy lobby. Heads turned and conversations faltered as the tension thickened in the air. The sunlight streamed through the glass walls, casting sharp shadows across the floor, but all eyes were on Sarah and Matt, who stood at the center of it all. Matt stepped back, clearly taken aback. "Sarah, this isn't the place for this." But for Sarah, later felt like an eternity filled with unspoken words and frustrations. Hours of hard work, late nights, and passionate ideas had led here, yet each time their team had met, Matt, her colleague, seemed to overshadow her. He never meant to dismiss her, but it felt that way. The lobby was a vibrant scene, brimming with people rushing to meetings, laughter, and the aroma of fresh coffee. But in this instant, it faded into the background. All Sarah felt was the heat of her anger igniting within her, the realization that she had reached her breaking point. Her heart raced, but she wasn't backing down. She pressed, her voice rising above the murmurs of the crowd. With each word, she poured out the frustrations that had boiled for months. The way Matt often took credit for their shared ideas, the way her heart sank each time he presented, his smile shining like a beacon of confidence while she felt like a ghost. It all surged to the forefront in that moment, like a dam breaking. The air was thick, almost electric. Several colleagues exchanged wary glances, uncertain whether to intervene or step back. All anyone knew was that this confrontation didn't possess a simple solution. "Sarah, please," Matt said, his brow furrowing with concern. "No," she yelled, the incredulousness of the situation heightening her poise. For a fleeting moment, she saw his expression soften, confusion giving way to concern. But she didn't care, she couldn't care, she needed to be heard. With a quick flip of her hair, she turned on her heel and strode out of the lobby, the quiet stares of colleagues following her like echoes. Outside, the fresh air hit her face like a splash of water, grounding her. Slipped into the nearby park, trying to collect her thoughts. As she sat on a bench and watched the leaves dance in the breeze, she felt an odd combination of exhilaration and dread. Had she crossed a line, reflections of their unspoken dynamics swirled in her mind. On one hand, she reveled in the freedom of expression, but on the other, fear gnawed at her. Her phone buzzed with a message from Emma, her best friend. Sarah took a deep breath and texted back, "I yelled at Matt. Yes, you go girl. He wants to talk later, I just don't want to go back to being invisible," she replied, the heaviness of her emotions spilling out. After some time, she returned to the office, anxiety creeping back like an unwelcome shadow. She could feel the tension in the air as the buzz of the impending board meeting filled the office. Matt would lead, and she'd once again be up against that wall of presence he wielded so effortlessly. As she entered the conference room, she saw him at the front, his confidence radiating throughout the space. The sharp lines of his suit framed his strong build. Deep down, she admired his assurance, but it infuriated her at the same time. Here he was about to lead a discussion that involved both their hard work, yet he seemed to eclipse her entirely. Matt turned to her as she took her seat, the flicker of concern replaced by determination. "Good afternoon, everyone," he started, capturing the attention of each team member. Sarah felt her heart race as he flowed through the agenda. Every word he spoke felt like a reminder of how effortlessly he commanded the room while she quietly simmered with frustration. At some point, he looked at Sarah and nodded. The room shifted. All attention turned to her and her stomach churned. This was a chance, but it also felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering precariously. Thanks, she started, forced to steady her breath. I've been focusing on our marketing strategy. I believe we can. As she spoke, her mind raced with thoughts. Could she reclaim the power she felt she lost? But then doubt crept in. As she glanced around, she could see some people appearing disinterested. The urgency of the moment passed through her like a chill. The more she talked, the more the words felt futile. Mid-sentence, she caught Matt's eye again. He was listening intently, but behind his mask of composure, she sensed a hint of impatience. Her heart sank. Was she losing them again? Then something changed. Amid the fear and uncertainty, she remembered the fire from that confrontation in the lobby. Why had she stood up? It was because she believed in her ideas. And suddenly, she felt the wheels turning in her mind. Maybe we should not only focus on traditional platforms, but also tap into social media influencers. Engaging with real users could bring authenticity to our brand, she added, her tone shifting. Something inside her clicked. She could see the expressions change. Heads nodded, murmurs of approval rippling through the room. Encouraged, she pressed on, her voice gaining strength with every word. As the presentation unfolded, Matt shifted in his seat, the earlier uncertainty evaporating as he chimed in. Great point, Sarah. Those words sunk in deep, tethering her anxiety to the ground. The meeting flowed seamlessly after that, filled with collaboration and connection as Sarah elaborated on her ideas. Suddenly, they weren't merely colleagues sharing a project, they were a team pulling the best from each other. When they wrapped up, applause filled the room, and Sarah felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Despite her earlier doubts, she had found her voice standing firm among them. Nearing the end, Matt leaned over to Sarah. You were incredible, really, he said, admiration evident. Thanks. As the meeting concluded and people began to filter out, she felt lighter. Maybe the confrontation hadn't destroyed their collaboration. Perhaps it had created a new foundation for their relationship. Weeks turned into a powerful collaboration. What had once seemed like an uphill battle transformed into a shared journey, filled with brainstorming sessions, laughter, and unguarded moments. Every meeting opened the floodgates for creativity and authenticity, where ideas flourished without the fear of being overshadowed. Together, they painted the office walls with color, with passion, with teamwork. Then the day of the annual board meeting approached, the ultimate test of their efforts. Sarah felt the excitement buzzing in her veins like electricity. They had come so far together, and this was the moment to showcase their hard work. The conference room filled with anticipation as team members shuffled to their seats. She spotted Matt at the front, chalking up his notes. Confidence radiated from him, but Sarah didn't feel the usual nerves bubbling in her stomach. Not anymore. As the meeting commenced, Matt welcomed everyone, his voice strong and welcoming. When it was time for their presentation, he glanced her way, a knowing smile on his face. Now I'd like to introduce Sarah, who will walk us through our marketing strategies, he said. Her heart fluttered with excitement as she stood up. This time she wouldn't just talk, she would command the room. Thank you everyone for being here today. As she spoke, she was filled with a sense of unwavering confidence. The fear of being unnoticed faded into the background. Every idea she presented resonated within her. She was in her element. The board members engaged, nodding along, sparking dialogue about their ideas. They leaned forward, eager to hear more. The energy in the room transformed, shifting toward a united front. When she wrapped up her presentation, the applause surrounded her like a warm embrace. She felt the rush of overwhelming joy and relief. Not only had she found her voice, but she had also contributed to something meaningful. Matt stood next to her, pride evident in his eyes. Incredible, Sarah, thanks. It was all of us really, she replied, a genuine smile lighting up her face. As they left the meeting, Sarah caught Matt's eye. You know, I'm grateful for that moment in the lobby. He nodded, a smile breaking free, his aura softening. I am too. It pushed us to value each other's contributions. And just like that, the initial confrontation forged an unexpected bond, a partnership built on mutual respect and trust. The earlier fireworks clearly had ignited something powerful, transforming frustration into collaboration. Through their journey, Sarah discovered her strength, the ability to voice her thoughts and challenge the status quo. As they continued to break through barriers, Sarah and Matt embodied the importance of communication and shared vision. In a world that often stifles voices, they learned that sometimes, all it takes is one moment of honesty to start a fire. Together, they crafted a new narrative, one where both dreams could coexist, embracing the vibrant colors of their shared path, one idea at a time. Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the chatter in the lobby, drawing shocked glances from bystanders. Matt stood frozen, looking incredulous as his colleagues turned to witness the unfolding drama. The air felt charged, electric with tension, as the bustling sounds of the office faded into the background. Matt blinked. Sarah, please. For Sarah, this was the moment she could no longer hold back. The weight of weeks of feeling unheard pressed against her chest, squeezing tighter with every glance at Matt's composed expression. He always had the easy charm, the way he could captivate a room. But lately, it felt like he was taking all the glory for their joint efforts while she faded into the background. "Why do you get to decide what's worthy of notice?" she shouted, each word boiling over with pent-up frustration. "I'm tired of being dismissed." Her heart raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She could feel a rush of heat flooding her cheeks. In that moment, vulnerability crashed into rage, and she didn't care who heard her. Matt's brow furrowed, his mouth opening slightly in surprise. "You're right," he said, shifting from shock to genuine concern, but the words felt too soft, like an echo that couldn't quite reach her. "Right," she paused, leaning closer, fueled by a concoction of resentment and bravery. Around them, colleagues exchanged whispers, some checking their watches as if timing this moment as entertainment. Sarah's frustration had transformed into a fiery resolve, and yet the audience wasn't helping. "Let's talk about this privately," Matt insisted, trying to find a way out of the spotlight. "No, I want them to know that I exist." Sarah clenched her jaw, emotions spilling over like too much water in a glass. Finally, with a huff, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the lobby. Cool air hit her like a wave as she burst outside, the sunlight bringing clarity as she took a deep breath. She wondered, feeling both liberated and terrified of the chaos she had unleashed. Just a few hours earlier, she had sat at her desk, poring over numbers and ideas and feeling invisible. She picked up her phone to text Emma, her best friend. "I yelled at Matt." The reply was instant. "OMG. He's taking credit for our project in front of everyone again. I'm just..." As Sarah sat on a park bench nearby, soaking in the sunlight, fear and adrenaline battled inside her. The emotional turmoil pushed her to examine what had brought her to this breaking point. What had her journey felt like for so long? Did it always have to be a struggle to be seen? After texting back and forth with Emma, Sarah decided to return to the office. She felt lighter, but still haunted by the confrontation. The anticipation of the board meeting later that afternoon gnawed at her. She would be presenting her ideas, with Matt leading the discussion as usual. Upon stepping back into the office, the energy felt different. Everyone had heard about the outburst. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment, but she forced herself to shake it off. As she approached the conference room, she saw Matt at the front, exuding confidence. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began, effortlessly commanding the room. Sarah slipped into her seat, feeling a mix of admiration and frustration surge again. How could he stand there, poised to take charge, like nothing had happened just hours before? Time ticked slowly as he led the discussion, presenting points and strategies that felt all too familiar. With each slide, Sarah felt her heart sink. After weeks of hard work, why was her voice again covered by the weight of his? As he finished one of his points, he glanced her way. For a brief moment, hope flickered inside her. This was a chance, but what could she say? Her earlier confidence began to waver, nostalgia for the bravery she had felt only hours before slipping through her fingers. Sure," Sarah stammered, trying to find her footing. "I have." The room's attention turned to her again, but as she started to speak, her throat tightened and the words felt stuck. Every eye seemed to watch her closely, waiting for something remarkable to emerge, but self-doubt swirled around like fog, clouding her vision. "Sarah, we're interested in hearing your insights," Matt prompted, a slight pressure behind his words. She paused, trying to gather her thoughts. She sent a nervous glance towards Matt, who leaned back, watching carefully. As she spoke, the tension in her voice was palpable, as if everyone could hear her inner battle. Then she glanced at the faces around her. They seemed less interested, flicking through their phones, their gazes distant. Frustration bubbled within her again, and suddenly inspiration struck her. "We should also consider leveraging social media influencers to authentically connect with our demographic. It could bring in a fresh perspective." The energy shifted. People began to nod, murmurs of agreement floated through the room, a spark igniting a fire. She felt the energy shift like a warm breeze, encouraging her to press on. "Yes," someone called out, and she could feel her pulse quicken, her confidence building. Matt raised an eyebrow, clearly caught off guard. "Exactly, Sarah, that's a solid idea." With each passing moment, the room buzzed with newfound energy. Sarah felt the heat of her earlier indignation morphing into a strength she had long since buried. She wished to seize that power to bring in every ounce of her creativity and insights. When they wrapped the meeting, applause filled the room. She turned to Matt, astonished. He replied, genuine admiration shining through. The transformation was undeniable. Weeks flowed into months, and with each passing meeting, Sarah's confidence blossomed. What had begun earlier as a hostile confrontation had morphed into partnership, a collaboration rooted deeply in mutual respect and willingness to push boundaries. Even through the hard nights of work, Sarah and Matt pushed each other to grow, their ideas melding into one cohesive force for innovation. They challenged one another, and together they transformed their project into a resounding success. As the days passed, Sarah found herself thriving in her role. The board meeting days were no longer daunting, but rather exhilarating. She relished the opportunity to share, to influence the team's direction with her voice now strong and clear. But the annual board meeting loomed closer, and even excitement was laced with apprehension. As they prepped for the presentation, Sarah caught Matt's eye, excitement coursing through her veins. He gave a reassuring nod, a silent pact of support between them. The conference room brimmed with energy as their colleagues filed in. The air buzzed with chatter, but as Matt began, his assured voice filled the space, commanding everyone's attention. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here." When their time came to present, all eyes locked onto Sarah. "Thank you all for your attention." As she began her presentation, she could feel the weight of earlier insecurities fade. The energy in the room felt vibrant, her ideas flowing freely. The audience was engaged, nodding along as the points landed with each well-crafted sentence. She glanced at Matt, who stood confidently beside her, affirming her insights with affirming nods. She felt the synergy between them, a collaboration that even the board couldn't ignore. Finally, they concluded, and applause erupted across the room. "That was so informative," one board member exclaimed. As people continued to discuss the presentation, Sarah and Matt walked outside, laughter spilling between them like sunlight. Matt grinned, a sincere joy lighting up his face. "Everything we've built together has led here," Sarah said, feeling the warmth of their connection. That moment in the lobby, the chaos and noise, had paved the way for partnership and collaboration, breathing life into the path they had charted together. Weeks went by, and each experience bound them closer until they became a solid team, two voices complementing each other rather than competing. They had learned that growth often arose from scratching beneath the surface of discomfort and fear, giving rise to potential and creativity. Sarah had transformed from someone who felt invisible to a vital player, her experience turning into a weapon for inspiration. Each board meeting, each shared idea revealed the strength of their union. And through all of it, Sarah learned how much power could stem from confronting uncomfortable feelings, how one loud moment grew into something amazing, reshaping the dynamics in the most unexpected ways. And with each idea they pitched, she embraced the promise held within every single word spoken, knowing that her voice was now an integral part of their success. Sarah's voice echoed through the busy lobby, cutting through conversations and clanking coffee cups. The bustling office building seemed to freeze at that moment. The chatter hushed as heads turned, eyes wide with surprise at the sudden confrontation. All around, the usual morning sounds faded into a distant murmur, replaced by the tension thickening in the air. Matt, the man she had been working alongside for months, stood there with a look of shock, his eyes darting between her and the people eavesdropping nearby. Despite his usual calm composure, she could see a flicker of discomfort on his face. "Sarah, this isn't the place," he replied, an attempt to defuse the situation that only seemed to ignite her anger further. She shot back, fists clenched at her sides. Her heart raced as she felt the pressure of years of frustration boiling over. The elevator dinged and the doors slid open, dozens of people spilling out. They walked past, pretended to tie their shoes or busy themselves with their phones, but they weren't fooling anyone. They were all watching the spectacle unfold. Sarah continued, her voice rising. "You think your ideas are the only ones worth hearing?" Matt took a step back, assessing the situation, his brows furrowed in concern. "I didn't mean to overshadow you. I thought we were on the same page." Calmly, the word felt like a betrayal, a suggestion that she should smooth over the edges of her emotions once more. No, she would not take that route, not this time. "You think I have time for calm discussions? I'm tired of being brushed aside." There it was, the cathartic release of pent-up frustration. The words fell out, each one heavy with the weight of countless hours spent feeling unseen. With a final glare, Sarah spun on her heel, marching away with purpose. The glass door slid open, letting the burst of cool air hit her face as she stepped outside, her heart pounding furiously in her chest. She paced the nearby park, taking deep breaths. Inhaling the fresh air, she tried to find some equilibrium, yet the adrenaline surged. She could almost hear her internal voice, a mix of doubt and clarity. She wondered. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from Emma, her best friend, glowed on the screen. What just happened? "I yelled at Matt in the lobby," Sarah typed back, glancing at the sky to sunbathe in its warmth while her emotions played tug-of-war in her mind. The texting continued rapidly, the little bubbles indicating Emma's response. "Well, what did he say? I just couldn't handle watching him take credit for my ideas yet again." After a few minutes, Sarah felt a mix of relief and dread as she returned to the office. She walked past the lobby, trying not to think about the awkwardness that awaited her. The buzz of tension still lingered. As she approached the conference room, her stomach flipped. Matt stood at the front, speaking confidently to their team. How could he sound so composed after what had just happened? He gestured animatedly, commanding the room's attention as if nothing had crossed between them moments before. She could hardly listen, every one of his words sharp against her already dashed hopes. "Good morning, everyone," Matt began, his voice strong and engaging. Sat down in her chair quietly, her heart racing. The intricate dance of anxiety and determination began to spiral. Could she really stand by while he presented her work without giving her credit? The thought twisted her insides. As Matt moved smoothly through each point, he finally turned to Sarah. "I'd like Sarah to share some of her insights." The room shifted and suddenly all eyes landed on her. She felt exposed like a deer caught in headlights. With a deep breath, she stood up, knowing she had to rise. "Thank you, Matt," she said, her voice trembling slightly. But as she spoke, doubt crept in. Would they even listen? Her anxiety worked against her, and she stumbled with her words. The room looked interested, but in her mind their attention felt tentative. The warm, supportive smiles of her teammates mixed with quizzical looks challenged her confidence. She knew her ideas were solid, she just needed to convey that strength. With each sentence, the earlier bravery from her confrontation flickered within her. Taking a deep breath, she shifted her posture. Then she saw a glint in Matt's eyes. He seemed to lean in, engrossed. I agree, and we could also use social media influencers to create a more authentic connection with potential clients, Matt added, his tone enthusiastic. Sarah's heart skipped. For the first time, he was validating her idea. She replied, feeling a rush of renewed energy as she continued. The room suddenly buzzed with the spark of collaboration. It was as if a fire ignited, filled with possibilities as everyone chimed in, sharing ideas and expanding upon what she had set in motion. The dynamic felt electric. Hours later, the meeting wrapped up, and as applause erupted, Sarah felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She turned to Matt, relief mingling with disbelief. Matt fell. Incredible, she admitted, a laugh escaping her lips, disbelief lacing every word. You were amazing, Sarah. You really brought it today, he said, a genuine smile breaking through. As they walked out, Sarah felt her spirit soar. Maybe she hadn't ruined everything. Maybe this confrontation had opened a door to a new kind of partnership, one built on respect and teamwork. Over the next few days, their collaboration flourished. They met more frequently, dedicated to building their ideas and enhancing their project. There was a newfound energy between them, conversations flowing effortlessly, boosting both their spirits. Matt was no longer the untouchable figure. He became her ally in the office. They shared brainstorming sessions, tackling ideas together, each one reinforcing her belief in her contributions. Then the day of the big board meeting arrived. The stakes felt higher, the anticipation buzzing in the air like an electric current. Sarah entered the conference room with a mix of nervous excitement. Conversations filled the space as colleagues prepared, their faces reflecting a blend of seriousness and anticipation. When Matt walked in, the usual confidence radiated from him, and she felt a flicker of admiration blend with warmth. He said softly, giving her an encouraging nod, "Yes." The meeting commenced, Matt gripping the attention of the room like a seasoned leader. Each word he spoke poured over the audience like honey, smooth and engaging. But today, Sarah felt prepared, standing alongside him as an equal, ready to share the spotlight. When their time to present arrived, her heart thudded loudly in her chest. "Thank you for being here today. I'm thrilled to share the results of our work," she began, the confidence rising like a tide. As she spoke, she could feel the energy shift. The board members listened to her, truly engaged, their expressions kindling excitement. When they concluded, the applause roared in the room. The smiling board members offered praise that warmed her heart. Sarah looked at Matt, who matched her grin, his pride palpable. He exclaimed, wrapping his arm around her shoulder. "You did too," Sarah replied, feeling the rush of gratitude for his support. In that moment, she realized just how far they had come. Days turned into weeks, and every meeting filled her with excitement rather than dread. Matt had been instrumental in her transformation, helping her rise to heights she never thought possible. She had learned to speak up, stand firm, and be counted. Eventually, the air of respect shifted in their workplace. No longer did it feel like a battle to claim space. They worked together seamlessly, bolstering each other's ideas. Taking risks felt less daunting with someone supportive by her side. Every week brought new challenges, but Sarah stood tall. That confrontation in the lobby had forged something beautiful between them, a partnership rooted in shared struggle, mutual respect, and unwavering support. As she walked through the office days later, she no longer felt like a shadow flickering against the walls. She was a vibrant force, her voice ringing clear in every meeting. She had transformed, learned to turn discomfort into opportunity, that even the loudest moments can give rise to growth. A simple shout of frustration had led to something profound. And now she embraced each new challenge with confidence, knowing that her voice mattered. In the end, Sarah had learned that sometimes the loudest moments, the ones filled with fire and intensity, could break down walls, creating pathways for collaboration, trust, and mutual growth that could light up any room. They had created more than just a project. They had built a legacy of partnership that transformed not only their work but their lives. Sarah shouted, her words slicing through the morning bustle of the lobby. The echo of her voice seemed to freeze the air, turning heads and drawing glances from weary commuters and busy employees alike. Matt stood before her, his usual calm demeanor evaporating as surprise painted his face. "Sarah, please, not here," he urged softly, glancing around as if hoping the walls themselves might provide an escape from the chaos unfolding. But Sarah was past the point of polite conversation. Frustration had festered like an unhealed wound, and today it had burst open. "Not here," she shot back, her heart pounding like a drum in her ears. The lobby, slick and bustling, transformed into an arena. Colleagues whispered and exchanged looks while Matt's expression shifted from confusion to pained recognition of the truth behind her words. She continued, fueled by an energy that had been building for weeks. "You can't keep brushing me aside like I don't matter." With each word, Sarah felt herself elevate, standing taller as if liberating a part of herself that had long been suppressed. She had spent countless late nights working through project details and strategies, only to consistently see Matt at the forefront, basking in the glory of their shared efforts. Matt's shoulders dropped slightly, and for a moment vulnerability cracked through his facade. "I never meant to overshadow you," he said, voice low. She echoed, incredulous. Caught in the storm of high emotions, other employees paused their conversations, waiting to see how this would unfold. Each pause felt like an eternity, her pulse racing under the combined weight of anger and the thrill of finally speaking up. As she stormed away, the door slid shut behind her, the chill of autumn air welcoming. Outside, Sarah took a deep breath, the crispness clearing her mind but still leaving a pit in her stomach. What had she just done? Had she destroyed her working relationship with Matt? Yet amid the chaos of her thoughts, she felt a flicker of liberation, a thrill that perhaps this confrontation was long overdue. With each step she took in the nearby park, her phone buzzed. Emma, her best friend, texted her instantly. "What happened?" "I yelled at Matt," Sarah replied, her fingers flying over the screen. Emma's response was nearly instant. "You go, girl. He said it wasn't meant to be like that," she typed, the uncertainty creeping back in. Would he really change? Or was this just another moment that would be forgotten? After wandering around for some time, Sarah made her way back to the office, heart heavy yet resolute. Her hands trembled a little as she approached the conference room where the afternoon meeting would take place. The clock ticked in rhythm with her anxious heart as she paused briefly at the door. Matt was already inside, speaking confidently to the team. In that moment, Sarah felt a mix of determination and dread. How would he act now? Would the tension hang thick in the air like an unwelcome fog? As she entered, the atmosphere shifted, colleagues glancing back, curiosity flickering in their eyes. "Good afternoon, everyone," Matt said, projecting authority. "Today, we'll discuss our ongoing campaign efforts." The team's attention swiveled toward her, and she felt a rush of adrenaline and anxiety coursing through her veins. It was an opportunity, yet the earlier confrontation replayed in her mind like an uninvited shadow. "Thank you," she replied, attempting to steady her voice. As she spoke, her confidence wavered. Matt's encouraging gaze felt as if it was prodding her to push through, yet doubt snaked around her heart. Would he let her be heard, or would he cut her off again? "And if we added a series of social media challenges to engage with our audience authentically, it could really boost interaction," she said, pushing the words out, still unsure of whether they would find fertile ground in the room. Matt began to respond, but she could feel hesitation soften his features. "That's a great idea, Sarah." Surprised by his response, her heart lifted. In that fleeting moment, she realized he was open to collaboration after all. The room filled with buzz, colleagues jumping in with their own thoughts. As the meeting progressed, ideas flowed, building off each other like a well-crafted melody. With each passing minute, Sarah felt herself change. The relief of being recognized swept through her. The painful tension lingered, but it was being transformed into something productive. After the meeting wrapped up, Sarah turned to Matt, who wore a broadened smile. "You did great today. I appreciate you speaking up," he said, genuinely vibrant. "Thanks, Matt," she replied, surprised but pleased. Matt shrugged, his confidence returning as he glanced around the room now teeming with teamwork. Sometimes things need to be said. As the days turned into weeks, their collaboration took on a new rhythm. They met often, forging stronger ideas together, eagerly building off each other's strengths. Slowly, the awkwardness faded into a new camaraderie that pulsed with creative energy. Then the annual board meeting approached, an intimidating spectacle that loomed ahead. The atmosphere felt electric in the days leading up, anticipation mingling with nerves. Sarah could hardly focus on her daily tasks, thoughts of how it would all come together overshadowed by rising anxiety. On the day of the meeting, she arrived early, pacing in the conference room before each member arrived. The walls felt close, and her thoughts raced as she replayed their progress in her mind, desperate to convert all of their hard work into a meaningful presentation that would resonate with the board. As Matt entered, Sarah caught his eye. A subtle smile erupted on his face. "Ready," she replied, a burst of confidence pushing her forward. The room filled gradually. Board members shuffled in, their serious faces and sharp suits sending a chill down her spine. As Matt began the presentation, he commanded the room effortlessly, his charisma pouring out. Sarah stood next to him, heart racing as she watched him take charge, but this time she felt anchored, prepared to speak up when needed. "Today we're excited to present the work we've been doing, which aims to propel our brand into a new era of engagement with our audience," he said, glancing at her with a knowing look before continuing. When it was their turn, Sarah felt the familiar nerves twist in her stomach, but she steadied herself, remembering how far they had come. "Thank you all for joining us today," she began, feeling the weight of their combined efforts. As she spoke, the once familiar fear transformed into excitement. She could feel the energy in the room shift. The board members leaned forward, clearly engaged, and their nods made her heart quicken with motivation. As they collaborated on their ideas for the campaign, Sarah exchanged glances with Matt, who remained supportive at her side. Together, they painted a vivid picture of their vision, and by the time they wrapped up, applause echoed around the polished room. A board member exclaimed, their approval boosting her confidence even higher. But as they prepared to leave, Matt glanced at Sarah, an expression crossing his face that was harder to read. She could see uncertainty flickering beneath his confident demeanor, a shadow of vulnerability reflecting something unspoken. He said, pulling her gently aside. "Of course," she replied, curiosity mingled with a hint of concern as she wondered what he might say. The other colleagues filtered out. She asked, watching him closely, feeling the weight of unexpected tension. Matt took a deep breath, searching for the words. "I know we had our differences before, and I appreciate how you stepped up today, but I need you to understand." Her heart fluttered with the sincerity of his apology. Maybe they could truly move forward from their earlier confrontation. "Thank you," she said. "I really do appreciate that." But just as they began to settle into this newfound understanding, a sudden commotion echoed from the main lobby, followed by a voice shouting. The door burst open, slamming against the wall, and a figure rushed in, knocking over chairs and catching every eye in the conference room. Sarah's heart raced. It was Clara, one of their top executives, but she looked frantic, her face pale. "There's been a security breach." Panic coursed through the room like lightning. Sarah and Matt exchanged alarmed glances, uncertainty morphing into a rush of adrenaline. The board meeting transformed into chaos. Chairs scraped against the floor as people rushed to their feet. "Wait, what?" Sarah asked, her heart pounding as she grasped the gravity of the situation. The fear etched across Clara's face told them everything they needed to know. "We have to evacuate." Without thinking, Sarah grabbed Matt's arm, pulling him toward the exit. They rushed through the doors, hearts racing, the world around them suddenly erupting into turmoil as they faced an uncertain and dangerous reality. As they rushed down the hall, her mind spun. A confrontation in the lobby had sparked a journey of growth and collaboration, but now they were thrown into chaos. What had started as a battle for recognition was now overshadowed by something far more dangerous. Together they braced for whatever lay ahead, not knowing if they would face the storm hand in hand or if this would be their final test. The question remained, could they navigate this unforeseen challenge the way they had finally learned to approach their partnership? The stakes had never felt so high, and everything hung in the balance.